I learned that it's not about me. And the minute I make it about me, I sabotage myself. The minute I remember that it's not about me, I go. All the walls go away. So the book, yes, the story's about me, but the book isn't about me. It's not about what I'm going to get from publishing this book at all. It's about the transformations I'm going to help others. It's about the book itself. Like, she actually has her own energy now, and she has her own journey. And when I'm needing to energetically retune, I go in and ask my heart what my book wants. And this is the message I always get. I just want to be in the hands of thousands of women. So just help me get into the hands of thousands of women.
You're listening to the Creative Impostor, episode number 88. Welcome to the Creative Impostor. I'm Andrea Klunder, and today I'm bringing you Charlotte Elea. Okay. I know I just had Charlotte on the show on episode 85, Devote Yourself to the Spark Within. And in that episode, we had a pretty in-depth conversation about her new book, To Be Worthy, and how she arrived at this book and this shift in her career, which was originally focused on tarot card reading and dream interpretation. In fact, we talked about that with Charlotte way back on episode 34, Step into Your Power with Tarot. And I am bringing you Charlotte again, and that is because last month I had the privilege of bringing Charlotte live into the Creative Impostor Facebook group to talk a little bit more about process. Because writing and self-publishing a book is not just about the writing. It's not even totally about figuring out how to format it to put it up on Amazon. There's so much more that goes into it. Like, Charlotte put together a community of beta readers to take in the book chapter by chapter and provide feedback. Not the kind of feedback you might expect for beta readers before the final edits were even made. And she did a successful Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for the launch of the book. But what does successful actually even mean? And what kind of planning went into the crowdfunding campaign before she ever even hit launch? And finally, what happens after? I mean, after the writing, after the editing, after the publishing, after the crowdfunding, after signing and sending out the hard copy books that people pre-ordered, then what? These are the questions that I still had for Charlotte after we finished our last interview, and so I got to ask them on Facebook Live. Now I am sharing that conversation here with you. If you haven't already, I encourage you to join the Creative Impostor Facebook group so that we can have more behind the scenes creative conversations like this with people who are really doing the work. The link, of course, is in the show notes for this episode, which you can find in the description in your listening app and at thecreativeimpostor.com/088 for episode 88. I'll also be including links to Charlotte's book and her website. And at the end of the episode, she invites you to go ahead and comment inside of the Creative Impostor Facebook group about your discoveries, your experiences with the book, and any questions that you might have. She's in our group, so you can just tag her and she'll respond. Please remember that I am also inviting you to get featured here on the Creative Impostor. I'm looking forward to celebrating a huge milestone of 100 episodes, and I need you. I really don't want to celebrate by myself. That would be so sad. I'll do it if I have to, but it would be really sad. What I'm asking for from you is a short story, literally a couple hundred words or 2 minutes of your time, to write an email or send a voice memo attached to your email about how the themes and ideas and the Creative Impostor podcast have inspired or resonated with you. Go right now, as long as you're not driving or walking, go right now to thecreativeimpostor.com/title list. And there you will find a list of all of my interview titles over the past 4 years. And each one is phrased as an action. For example, my previous episodes with Charlotte were Devote Yourself to the Spark Within, and Step into Your Power with Tarot. You could pick either one of those or a totally different one that resonates with you, whether it's the episode itself that you remember listening to and feeling some kind of something, or maybe it's just the phrase, regardless of the actual episode content. It's just the phrase that makes you think of something in your own creative life and work that you would like to share with the other Creative Impostor listeners and with me. This is really kind of a test. And if you send me anything, you'll pass the test. But it's not really a test for you. It's a test for me because, well, when you spend a lot of time and energy and thought on making a podcast, at a certain point, you start to wonder if those download numbers that you see in your hosting stats actually mean anything. Are they real people? And who are those people? And what are they getting out of your show? Those are all questions that, even though I've been producing podcasts for 4 years, I can't answer. In most cases, I actually don't know who you are or what you are enjoying or what speaks to you on this show. And if I knew, I don't know, that would be so much more awesome and so much more rewarding. And I might have an idea of what to offer you next. So that's it. Go check out that list, see if any of those prompts speak to you or if any past episodes have spoken to you, and share with me what came up for you. Again, you can simply write it out and email me, or you can record a voice memo on your phone, unless you have fancy podcasting gear, who knows? And then you could also record it and send me an audio file. Either way, my email is andrea@thecreativeimpostor.com. Andrea@thecreativeimpostor.com. I'd love to hear from you by the end of the year. It's getting closer, but this will give me time to actually compile our episode 100 without stress because, yeah, that's how I want to do it. So if you could please send me something, anything, just a short little message about one of those prompts by January 1st, that would be wonderful. And in fact, if you have no idea what to write or record, go back and listen to the episode prior to this one, episode 87, titled Creative Impostor Stories for You and Happy Birthday to Me. And you will hear 4 examples of episode prompts that really resonated with me. Okay, one last quick thing before we get to Charlotte. If you enjoy this conversation and you would like to have the opportunity to be a part of more of these conversations and send in questions for other carefully curated creators and previous Creative Impostor guests who are making media that matters, let me know. Just a quick note on Facebook, on email, in a review on Apple Podcasts. Let me know because I have an idea to keep doing what I'm calling the online media club in the Facebook group. But really, I only want to do it and I only want to ask these creators for their time if I know that it's going to matter to you, if I know that you're going to show up either live or on the replay after the fact with your questions, with your thoughts, with your insight, with your comments. Because if nobody's there, it's not a very fun club. So if this is an idea that is exciting to you, please let me know and I will schedule more in 2020. And if not, then who knows? This might be the last one. Okay, here we are, Charlotte Elea talking with me about the process behind the scenes of her new book, To Be Worthy. All right. And here we are. We are going live right now on Facebook Live inside the Creative Impostor group. And I am so happy to welcome Charlotte Elea because really I cannot run out of excuses for connecting with Charlotte. So much fun.
I love that you can't stop running out of excuses. I love that.
So Charlotte, for anyone who does not know, is the author of the brand new book, To Be Worthy, which is, I would say, part autobiography, part workbook, part self-help inquiry. It bridges a few different genres, I think.
Yeah. I call it inspirational. Like that's the genre I've decided to call it.
Inspirational. Awesome.
Yeah, because I share my story, but then there's also, it leaves you then with a place to go and do your own stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. So we're here today to have a conversation following up with the interview that I recently did with Charlotte on the Creative Impostor episode. But for those who may not have heard that episode yet and may not have yet picked up To Be Worthy from Amazon, can you tell us, Charlotte, just a little bit about who you are and what this book is all about?
Sure. Lately, I've been calling myself an expert in emotional self-healing. And To Be Worthy is a book about my own journey of healing my self-worth. So about 5 years ago, or was it now 6? I can't remember. I kind of came to a dead end in my life where I was like going through a lot of different jobs that were just all making me really unhappy. And I finally totally bottomed out and got fired from a minimum wage job, actually. And this is after I had a career as a psychotherapist, social work, career in marketing. And I got to a place where there's just nowhere else for me to go because I had been searching for the solutions to fix me and fix my life outside of myself and coming up empty every time, which would just dig it in further of like, there's just something wrong with me, right? And so in that moment, 5 years ago, I stopped searching and came to a moment of personal crisis and inquiry. It's like, well, where do I go now? And the only place to go was within, actually. So that in that moment, I started excavating all of these beliefs I was been carrying and all these behaviors that I had been doing for years, which had just left me without any resources to help myself. And realized that what it all came down to was that my entire life, I was just believed myself to be totally worthless and had never done anything to serve and help myself, but had just led my whole life trying to prove my worth by trying to help other people. So I began this great journey of healing myself. And the book is about that journey that I took. As you know, it took me through becoming a tarot reader, doing transformation coaching, because whatever I was learning and practicing that would help me heal, I would then offer to others as well. And so it's come to this point now where I've written this book and I have developed all these tools to help women especially learn to heal themselves emotionally and spiritually.
Can you give us a little bit of a timeline from the time that the idea for the book came into your mind to where you are now?
So it would have been 2 years ago from this past summer that I started writing the book. So 2 years and a few months. Writing was my creative outlet, and I had actually been writing a novel, and I had been paused on that for a while. So I knew I wanted to write something else. And I realized like, oh, wow, I can start writing about this journey I've been going through, this story. And that would be a lot of fun to write about that. I mean, I really started it just because it felt like a passion project. And it might be something that would be helpful for others too. And so the way that it's seated within me, actually, and those that have the book know that each chapter revolves around a wounding belief that we are able to unearth within ourselves, release, and then come to the truth, right? And originally, the concept of the book was actually around a lie I had to unlearn and then a truth. I even had a title at one point, like 2 Truths and a Lie. And at one point, like every chapter was 2 truths and 1 lie. And then I realized that's like way too labored. And it melded into its current form. But I started out with just that idea. Like, let me just brainstorm a bunch of lies I've told myself and the real truths behind that. And then I just started writing chapters based on that. And then, the whole timeline you wanted to, right?
Yeah. From there, I'm guessing like the bulk of that 2-year time period was spent on actually like writing and rewriting and things like that.
Yeah. A year was writing. And then another year was editing. Yeah. And doing the Worthiness Project, which you were a part of, which is where I had like basically 55 beta readers who were reading the book. And I was getting not really like editorial feedback, but like feedback from people who are reading it and having breakthroughs, having healing experiences. And I could see the impact and I could see what was really impactful in the book, which really like motivated me to get the book out into the world. That was such huge motivation. I knew I really needed to get it out once I did that. And then it went through several rounds of my editing. I hired a professional editor who helped me restructure a lot of it, actually, because I know I wanted to elevate it to a bigger audience, and then copy editing. And then finally this summer, I did the crowdfunding.
Actually, that's something we didn't really talk that much about on the podcast interview was the beta reader group. And that is something that I feel like either one of two things is happening. Either more and more people who are writing and or self-publishing are using this tool to help them in the writing process, not just help with the writing process, but also I think to sort of develop a community around the work and around what you're creating. Or I just happen to be getting invited to more and more beta groups pre-book launch, like pre-publishing.
Wow.
So I don't know whether it's just that more people are doing it and it's becoming more common, or whether I just am in a different circle of people now than I used to be, that I never heard of that. Because what you did, how you did the beta launch, you basically reached out to a very specific group of people and created a private Facebook group, right? Or a secret Facebook group. What was the process from there? First of all, how did you choose who to invite to be a beta reader?
Intuitively, yeah. I mean, it came in waves, actually, because I didn't know how many people. I did it all very intuitively. Like, I just felt really guided to do it. Like, it all came together. I remember because I had a trip to Peru planned.
Okay.
It all came together in like a week. I was like, okay, I have to plan this all, get it all set up before I go to Peru. And then I'm going to come back to Peru and we're going to start it. And so it all happened really fast. And I didn't know how many people I wanted in the group, but I was like, it's going to be really simple. I'm just going to give a couple chapters every week. Yeah. And I just started getting intuitive hits at first of like who to invite, right? So I started with a small group and then felt the energy of them and then invited a few more people. I added it to my email list. I think I only invited people who were like actually engaged in my emails, you know, like I did a
like
filter,
you filtered it.
Yeah. And then I did it on Facebook too. And I said, if you were interested, send me a private message so I could filter. But I also had an application. I don't know if you remember that. I had people actually have to fill out an application and tell me why they wanted to participate so that I could feel people's motivation, that it wasn't just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. But like, I wanted people who were there who were like, oh my God, yes, this is totally landing at the right moment. So it was amazing. Like, I had so many people on their application say, I really believe that like this is coming to me at the exact right moment because yes, I'm really struggling with my self-worth right now. So then I could feel everybody sort of coming in was really intentional about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting that that's becoming a lot more popular because I think that's like the shift. I think it's a shift in the way that those of us who are entrepreneurs or authors or creators or whatever we want to call it, practitioners, we create within community, you know, and it's amazing to get that feedback before one launches something into the world. And so you're actually creating something, you already know that it's serving other people other than you before you give it out to the world. I think that's really amazing, actually.
It's an interesting interplay between the idea of writing as self-expression and writing as a service to your community. You know, it's both of those things, but you could just, you know, say, oh, I'm expressing myself in my story and I'm just writing it and, you know, people will receive it however they will receive it. But then, you know, to have this group and have this feedback, and you had very specific boundaries and guidelines as to what type of feedback you were looking for and in what way. Can you talk a little bit more about that feedback mechanism and also how much of it you found was useful that you actually ended up incorporating versus how much of it was just, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I went into it thinking like I'd get a lot of editorial feedback, and I actually didn't very much. Like the feedback that was most helpful was just people sharing their personal experiences with it. So that was fully welcome, right? Like there was no boundaries and limits to coming into the group and sharing what impact the chapter had on you, sharing the results of the practices. And I don't know if you remember, it was really, people were so vulnerable and open, which was really wonderful. You know, and that was about creating that safe space at the very beginning. I also had a rule about, because there's a lot of Facebook groups will just like post a meme. Like people will get excited and they'll be like, oh, and then like post a meme and be like, I thought everyone would enjoy this. And it's like, okay, but why? Like, why are you posting that? What brought you to put that in? Why is it touching something in you? Yeah. You know, like I didn't want it to be anything surface level. So it's like you can post a meme, but then share why you're posting it, why it's touched you today. And so that was another guideline that I had, that everybody, if you're going to post, it has to be personal. It has to be coming from your heart.
Right.
I also really, really encourage people to comment on other people's posts so that it was a actual like community, you know? And so you're not just coming in there and dumping and then leaving. You're going in there to engage with other people who are moving through the process as well.
Yeah.
And then of course, like no selling and all of that, you know? And then, and I asked people to save their critical feedback of the material until the very end of the project. And then I had forms for people to fill out if they had feedback.
Right.
And then a form to write a review of the book as well.
Right. And so how much of that feedback do you feel like you actually ended up incorporating into rewrites, or in terms of, did any of that feedback influence your crowdfunding campaign and how you set that up and went about doing that?
I don't know how much the critical feedback actually impacted the editing. I don't really remember. I mean, I did so many edits back then, like my own little edits. And then after I sent it to a professional editor, it was kind of like total game changer. It was more like really seeing what chapters, what parts of the book were really like hard for people, challenging, what really opened people up. Like that was kind of like the most helpful.
Where are you in the process now? So kind of jumping forward, you did that beta group and then did all of the editorial work. Then the crowdfunding campaign came in, mostly to reimburse you for what you had already invested. Yeah.
Yes, mostly to reimburse me and to pay for printing and postage.
Right. Yes. And so now I know I saw a picture in social of you with all your signed copies that you were sending out for people who had ordered a signed hard copy. So where are you now in the evolution and the lifespan of your book? What stage would you say you're in now?
I am at a pause. I'm past the initial phase of the launch, and now I'm at a pause before the next phase. And to be honest, Andrea, I don't even know what it's going to look like yet. Like, this is what's really amazing and freaking me out at the same time. It was such a much bigger deal than I thought it was to send out like those 100 books to people. It was, I have been in this just like whirlwind ever since the crowdfunding campaign of, and I have felt this incredible like circle of support around me. The crowdfunding campaign really, really helped me like build a foundation and a platform to be like, yes, this book is so freaking important and it's really good and people want it, because the amount of support I got from the crowdfunding campaign, and people were like egging me on every day and saying, I'm so excited to get my book, and like, I'm so excited to support you. And people came out of the woodwork who I never would have expected to. And my family was been so supportive of it and so excited, you know, and the book is like critical towards a lot of my family, but they were so supportive of it. And just all my close friends, and they all, you know, they'd say like touch base with me about it. And so it just created this beautiful like bubble around me through this initial phase of I'm launching a book, you know, because when you're self-publishing too, I mean, there is that risk of feeling like you're doing it all alone, right? Because you don't have an agent, you don't have a company that you're constantly interacting with. It's just you.
Yeah.
And so I really needed that. And that was like the gift, like far more than the money. Yes, I needed the money, but I don't really think in the end it was really about the money, you know? It was really about having that support. And so last week when I signed and mailed out all those copies, and it was such a joyful experience doing it too. And I was like putting stickers on the packages and putting little like mantras and prayer cards in the books. I just had fun with it. I spent a couple days where I was exhausted, more tired than I've been in months. Like I had no energy for anything. I just wanted to lay on the couch and cry and sleep. So tired. It was such a huge release, you know, it really was coming to the end of that phase. And I felt really sad. I'm saying goodbye to, essentially not saying goodbye, but I'm ending that phase of, all right, now you have your book. And now I'm ready for the next phase, you know, to get it to that next level, that next bigger bubble, right? I really, really recommend creators do crowdfunding campaigns. I think that it is really challenging, but it's just so, There's so many benefits.
Yeah. Do you have any, I may have asked you this on the podcast before, but do you have any advice for somebody who is thinking of whether it's a book or some other creative content project that is thinking about doing some kind of crowdfunding campaign? Do you have any like big learnings or ahas or huge mistakes that you feel like you learned from?
Do a lot of planning in advance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not one of these things where you're like, okay, I'm going to start a crowdfunding campaign next week. No, like give yourself at least 2 months to plan it all out, to do a lot of the content ahead of time. Create a Google spreadsheet. I had a whole spreadsheet of everything I needed to do every day. Mm-hmm. Clear your schedule and know that you're going to be working on it every day. Mm-hmm. Like every day you have to take action on asking people to contribute, asking people to share it, reaching out to more people. You're doing the socials, you're doing your email, you're like texting people. I mean, it really is about consistently showing up, not only consistently showing up, but then having like people, like a coach or friends that you can like call on, or healing sessions that are going to help you keep, it's a marathon. However long you do it, most people recommend 30 days. I did 30 days. It is a marathon, and it's really important just to keep your energy up and clear. Because I think I said this in podcast. It's not an option to go and hide under the covers for 2 days. It's not. You can do it for an hour, and then you got to get up, call somebody and say, I'm struggling. I need a boost. Get a boost and go back to it.
Where you are right now is between the advance orders on the crowdfunding and then also any sales that have come through with Amazon. Did you have a goal, like a number goal or a download goal or a sales goal or anything like that ahead of time, or an expectation? And if so, where are you in that? Or did you just have like no expectation whatsoever and whatever is?
No, I didn't. I had a goal for my crowdfunding campaign, but not for the initial. Like I had no idea what would happen actually for the initial. And like I got kind of big initial first days, and now it's got sort of a pause again. So yeah, I think that that's really tricky to do that. And I think especially because I did the crowdfunding campaign, because so many people pre-ordered it, that I didn't actually expect huge sales at the get-go, because so many people I know had already pre-ordered it.
Right. You're like, who else is left?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then this is, I think, the last question. So I've been kind of peppering in some community questions as we go, and I didn't call out specific people, but I will say Isabel Rizzo, who is how we first met.
Yay!
Shout out to Isabel. One of the things that she had asked, of course, she asked about like your process, but she also wanted to know just big picture, what have you learned from this whole experience?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I learned that it's not about me. And the minute I make it about me, I sabotage myself. The minute I remember that it's not about me, I go. All the walls go away. So the book, yes, the story's about me, but the book isn't about me. It's not about what I'm going to get from publishing this book at all. It's about the transformations I'm going to help others. It's about the book itself. Like she actually has her own energy now. I've been working with her so much that she is her own entity and she has her own journey. So it's about her. And when I'm needing to energetically retune, I go in and ask my heart what my book wants. And this is the message I always get. I just want to be in the hands of thousands of women. So just help me get into the hands of thousands of women. And that just grounds me into my purpose. And then all the walls disappear. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about whether I'm afraid what people are going to think about me. It's not about how much money I'm going to make from the book. It's not about how successful I become and big, public figure I become at all. It's simply about more women getting the book. Always shifting from that place of like, what's it really about?
I really like the idea of the thing that you made as being its own entity, as being its own sort of self. I'm currently like in my mind trying to think, how does that apply to my podcasts? How are they a personality or a creature or an entity or a soul that is very much related to me, but also not me?
Yeah. I think so, because I mean, like, do you feel like it's sort of like a persona that you take on, or do you just feel like you're Andrea, like when you do your podcast?
It's definitely a persona. And because I have 2 shows that I host that have a slightly different audience and a slightly different purpose, even the persona between the creative imposter Andrea and the podcast envy Andrea are actually slightly different as well.
Yeah. And it's like the show calls forth that persona from you, right?
Right. And it's not inauthentic.
Yeah.
It's not like fake, but it is definitely its own thing.
Yeah. We talked about the beginning of like a lot of people write a book or they do or something that's about them, And so I think that people fall into that thing of like, well, my book's about me, and so this is about me. I think that's like such an important lesson for creators. Whatever you're creating, it's at a point where you really need to like give it away.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to unattach yourself from it and let it be its own thing. Because if your ego is in it, then you're just going to be like injured through everything that the entity gets,
Right. Super interesting. Okay. Well, we are coming to the close here, and I'm just going to ask you one last question, Charlotte. But before I do that, I just wanted to say, of course, even though we're not live anymore on the replay, feel free to leave your comments, thoughts, anything that has come up for you. If anyone has picked up the book and has started reading or completed reading it, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And I definitely have read it more than once now at this point, and would love to have a conversation and engage either publicly in the Facebook group, or if you want to message me any of your thoughts, of course, I'd love to hear that way as well. And if you haven't picked up the book, I'll definitely be linking to it.
Yeah. And feel free to tag me in comments, and I will most definitely see them and answer them. And if you'd like to private message me too, I'm open to that as well.
Yeah. Charlotte's in the group, so she'll see, if you tag her name, she'll see anything that you post there. And I definitely think it's useful for anyone who's a member of this group. I think that it is definitely useful in terms of looking at where you are with your own relationship to yourself. And as a creative, that's so super important on our journey. I mean, as a human, that's so super important on our journey. But I think also as creatives, our work is so closely tied to our self-identity that it is really important to take a look at that. So Charlotte, my last question for you before we say goodbye for the day, until I can find another reason to get you on Skype or on the podcast or whatever, is there anything else that you feel called to share with our viewers or with our community? Anything else that is coming to your mind that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, just what you were saying actually related to creatives, because I think that, there is something about all of us creatives tend to have we're more sensitive. We feel our feelings a lot more deeply. We're a lot more internal. We need then to spend more time, I think, in that place of conscious, like deep self-reflection. Creating art is one way to do that, but also being in a place of, I call it like witness consciousness, really, really getting to know the deeper parts of yourself and the voices within you. For all of that, for that reason, yes, I do encourage all creatives to really begin to explore what self-worth means to them, like what it means for them to know themselves to be worthy.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for hopping on and spending this time with us today.
Yeah,
late morning for you, early afternoon for me, and who knows what time for whatever time zone anyone else is going to be watching. I'll link to All Things to Be Worthy is the name of the book. Mm-hmm. I will link to that and to Charlotte, and I'm looking forward to hear what everyone thinks. And thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
That conversation was so fun. There is something very different about doing Facebook Live versus doing a podcast interview. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I wonder if we should do more of these. Would you show up, either live or to catch the replay? If so, please join the Creative Impostor Facebook group. You can find it at thecreativeimpostor.com/FB. Request to join, and then hit me up, send me a message or make a post saying that you want more of the online media club, and I will schedule some guests for 2020. Also, please remember to share a short story with me about how the podcast is inspiring you or resonating with you for episode 100. I'd love a short story either in written or audio form from one of the interview title prompts, which you can find again at thecreativeimpostor.com/title list. Linked in the show notes, of course, for this episode at thecreativeimpostor.com/088. Thanks so much to Charlotte. Of course, you know where to find her book. And I'd love to hear from you in the Facebook group, any insights, observations, thoughts, etc. from To Be Worthy. This episode of The Creative Impostor was mixed by Edwin Ruiz at Mondo Machine. Our theme music is by Jovia Armstrong. I thank you so much for listening. And this month, I'm inviting you to remember your own self-worthiness completely separately from holiday shenanigans, travel woes, shopping extravaganzas, and all that pressure for a new year, new you. I hope to hear from you soon.